The Oklahoma Supreme Court rules the Turnpike Authority's 15-year plan for several projects across the state is legal and can move forward.
That means the Turner Turnpike here in Green Country will start seeing construction again. We just don't know when. News on 6's Amy Slanchik has more on today's 6-3 decision.
First and foremost, we're thankful to the Oklahoma Supreme Court for its ruling today.
The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority is relieved today after the state Supreme Court gave its $5 billion plan the green light. The OTA halted work on all of its access projects in April during a legal fight that began over plans for a new turnpike in Norman, which would have involved tearing down hundreds of families' homes. Today, Executive Director Tim Gatz emphasized OTA doesn't know how many homeowners will be impacted, adding it will take months to rework engineering plans. But there are other access projects across the state.
Some of it will restart and move ahead faster than other phases.
Plans to widen the Turner Turnpike from Kellyville to OKC will pick back up, but OTA didn't say when.
The growth in Oklahoma, whether you're talking about the metropolitan area of Oklahoma City, metropolitan area of Tulsa, or in some of our major interstate corridors, is not going to slow down.
In a statement, the vice president of the group PIKE Off OTA, which led the fight against OTA's Norman Turnpike, says in part, these unintended consequences were unimaginable when we began this journey to protect the citizens, wildlife, land, and way of life in rural Norman. Recent Supreme Court decisions have left the people of Oklahoma with less of a voice, less property rights, and less faith in the institutions that are supposed to serve the people. The Turnpike Authority says the best way to stay on top of all these projects is to visit accessoklahoma.com. That's where construction updates, costs, and plans can be found. Live in Tulsa, Amy Slanchik, Oklahoma Zone, News on 6.
The Access Oklahoma Turnpike expansion plan will move forward. That announcement comes in the wake of a state Supreme Court ruling on bond validation. The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority put the project on hold in April, but will now work on securing the funding mechanisms.
We've got a lot of engineering work left to be done, and we're going to restart that as quickly as we can, but it's going to take months to get going again. And really, until you have established right-of-way lines, you really don't have a true reflection of how many property owners may be affected.
Tim Gatz with ODOT is talking about homes in the Norman area which are in the pathway of part of the expansion plan. We'll hear from them ahead on News 9 at 5.
Yeah, Jess, I asked the Oklahoma Department of Transportation Secretary Tim Gatz today if this means that those Access Oklahoma projects are officially unpaused. He said it'll take months for the projects to resume, but that the process starts right now. In today's opinion, the state Supreme Court said for over 30 years it's honored OTA's expertise in making complex decisions about turnpike routes. It goes on to say both the controversial southern extension that would go through Cleveland County and other proposed routes across Oklahoma City are authorized. But today's decision focuses on bonds.
The validation is really about the financing and the opinion of the financing for routes that are defined in statute. And we've always said that we believe the routes that were put forth are defined in statute.
Now the OTA takes the next steps to make the project possible, like going to the Council of Bond Oversight for bond issuance approval.
That'll allow us to enter the bond market and then resuming discussions with our federal, state, and local partners about the specifics of the project.
But when asked when construction could start in the most controversial area of the project,
it will take years in the context of the long-range plan to get to the point where we're ready to do that kind of work in the Norman area.
They say improvements to existing routes will move along quickly, and they're committed to being transparent about their plans through the process. Now, OTA says that this is the best way for any homeowners or business owners who think that they may be affected by any of these turnpikes. There's a few phone numbers on there as well as a website where you can get more information. And guys, we have been in touch with some of those opponents as well, like PIKE Off OTA. Now, that Supreme Court ruling said that any opponents would have 20 days to petition this opinion. Back to you.
Yeah, at least we heard from those opponents. They plan to petition this decision, right? They say the fight isn't over.
Yeah, they say that although they just found out that they do plan to petition eventually and that they have hope in this process moving forward.
Our job is to keep shining light on this behavior and to keep telling the rest of Oklahoma that there is no place in the state of Oklahoma that is safe to build away from the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority.
Now, the vice president of the OTA also sent a statement today. She said in part, quote, recent Supreme Court decisions have left the people of Oklahoma with less of a voice, less property rights, and less faith in the institutions that are supposed to serve the people.
Do you have conspiracy-minded friends who think Big Brother is listening? Turns out in Oklahoma, they are. This lady here, Jessica Brown, is the Director of Strategic Communications for Oklahoma Transportation, and she has been using her six-figure taxpayer-funded salary to spy on the opposition. The opposition that she refers to are homeowners and citizens who don't want their home or their neighbors' homes to be destroyed for a turnpike. Pike Off OTA, a group that's been fighting against the turnpikes, received data from an open records request that contains the sometimes daily emails Ms. Brown has been sending to the governor's office. She calls it social listening, and it involves taking screenshots. I counted over 150 pages of Facebook screenshots in just the data we gained access to. So she takes screenshots of various Facebook posts and entire comment threads over a day or two period. She very kindly adds an executive summary to her email, attaches all those screenshots, and then sends it off to the governor's office and Oklahoma Turnpike Authority VIPs. We've uploaded the open records request files to the No More Turnpikes Facebook group. Go check it out and see if something you've said ended up in there. And let me know in the comments if you think this is a good use of taxpayer funds. But be warned, whatever you say may end up as part of official government correspondence.
The Access Oklahoma Turnpike expansion plan will move forward. That announcement comes in the wake of a state Supreme Court ruling on bond validation. The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority put the project on hold in April, but will now work on securing the funding mechanisms.
We've got a lot of engineering work left to be done, and we're going to restart that as quickly as we can, but it's going to take months to get going again. And really, until you have established right-of-way lines, you really don't have a true reflection of how many property owners may be affected.
Tim Gatz with ODOT is talking about homes in the Norman area which are in the pathway of part of the expansion plan. We'll hear from them ahead on News 9 at 5.
A Supreme Court ruling takes the brakes off an Oklahoma Turnpike expansion project.
For some communities, it means economic opportunity, while others, though, could lose their homes. News 9's Jordan Frimstead is live with what's down the road for Oklahoma. Jordan?
Amanda and Carl, the group that advocates for homeowners on behalf of this project who are affected by these proposed plans say they're almost out of options after the Supreme Court decision came down today. However, OTA says it will likely take years before any construction begins. Tuesday's Oklahoma Supreme Court decision.
It's disgusting.
Builds a divided highway.
The rule of law is completely dead in the state of Oklahoma.
Before construction even begins.
We're thankful to the Oklahoma Supreme Court for its ruling today.
Amy Serrato does not agree.
I would say the word would be distraught.
With the court's decision to greenlight a $5 billion Access Oklahoma plan, building 3 new routes. One would cut right through Norman homeowners' backyards.
The people that get hurt are the common citizens that get up and go to work every day.
Serrato's home was in the proposed path, but her property rests next to Lake Thunderbird.
Because it would affect the quality of the water.
Federal title lands prevent development to protect this environment.
But there's a whole new set of homeowners in the state of Oklahoma that have no idea the turnpike is coming through their living room.
In Davenport, Oklahoma, some people can't wait for a new turnpike exit.
It would really open up a lot of doors for us.
A gateway into their town could shift their local economy into a new gear.
My goodness, it'd make a big difference.
Transportation Secretary Tim Gatz says it will take months to get organized and set a permanent plan.
And we pledge, as we always have, to work diligently and with care with those impacted.
Serrato has one more option.
Take it to the federal level.
To pump the brakes on this highway. Now, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority still needs to seek approval to issue bonds for these projects, and they also have to enter the bond market. We're live in Oklahoma City tonight. Jordan Fremstead, Oklahoma Zone, News 9.
It will impact so many people. Jordan, thank you. You heard Jordan. He referenced it with the residents in Davenport, but part of the access plan also involves making changes along the Turner Turnpike.
Certainly, the widening of the Turner Turnpike between Kellyville and Oklahoma City is a premier project in the Access Oklahoma plan and desperately needed.
Currently, that section of the Turner is 2 lanes, and according to the OTA, it's on average of nearly 165,000 daily drivers last year.
Well, Kevin, although a big day for the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, they don't see it as a victory, just another step in their very long process. The state Supreme Court has validated a $500 million bond, meaning OTA can now move forward with the southward expansion that has been on hold since April.
PIKE off OTA and the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation, and me personally, are very disappointed.
In disbelief with the state Supreme Court's decision to side with the Turnpike Authority, an uphill battle for the OTA resulted in Access Oklahoma being able to continue. Hundreds of millions of dollars validated.
This decision has made it a precedent that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority can now build wherever they want, whenever they want.
This all started because of complaints from families, including those involved with PIKE off OTA. The state Supreme Court then asking why OTA did not go through the proper channels of requesting a bond extension. The court decided the bonds were valid, though. Court records show, quote, this court stands behind the last 30 years of precedents. Also decided, OTA has the authority to construct the south extension and decide on routes. This extension would travel south into McLean County and onto I-35 just north of Purcell. This means current property owners in the line of construction may have to uproot their lives.
To be clear, we are at the very beginning stage of this long-range plan. Construction in the Norman area specifically likely will be several years away from today.
Next on the docket, continuing conversations and engineering work. Some of the reasoning behind the Supreme Court backing OTA is to better facilitate traffic and meet safety needs. In 2022, the daily traffic count was 150,000 cars, producing 5 accidents a day. In 27 years, it's projected there will be twice as many cars. Despite this, PIKE off OTA says they'll continue fighting against the project.
PIKE off OTA will be seeking help at the federal level.
There is still an ongoing taxpayer lawsuit against the Turnpike Authority, but the Secretary of Transportation doesn't see this nor the investigative audit hindering their project.
The Turnpike turmoil renewed today after the Supreme Court gave the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority the green light to move forward with the bond proposal.
Opponents showed up to voice their opinion about it, but they weren't allowed to speak. News 4's Tanner DeLeon joins us with more details on this ruling. Tanner?
Yeah, although it was a big day for the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, they don't see it as a victory, just another step in the process. But for the people protesting it, they were visibly upset for not even getting a chance to speak.
Standing outside today in the hot summer sun to talk with you because the OTA board refused our request to speak at today's meeting. We believe this is a mistake on the part of the board and the OTA leadership.
Tassie Hirschfeld, along with many other protesters, were upset after being told they would not be allowed to give public comment on a number of topics on their mind.
Isn't the business of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority the business of the citizens of Oklahoma?
There was some disbelief with the state Supreme Court's decision to side with the Turnpike Authority, but it has given them the financial stability they need to move forward with the project.
The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority's mission is to interface seamlessly with the state highway system, thereby providing a choice for safe, convenient, and efficient passage in a user-funded transportation network.
However, this is a 15-year plan, and they are only in year 1.
To be clear, we are at the very beginning stage of this long-range plan.
While everyone is not on board with the project, Gatz says this will be beneficial for every Oklahoman.
Our goal is to provide safe infrastructure while maintaining the lowest toll rate that we can for our customers.
Every big story. Next on the docket, continuing conversations and engineering work. Despite this, PIKE off OTA says they will continue fighting against the project.
All right. Thank you, Tanner. People protesting the Access Oklahoma Turnpike are not happy ahead of this morning's Turnpike Authority meeting. All say they were denied the chance to speak publicly, but the agency is saying they do not have to allow it in the first place. News 4's Austin Brissett has details.
Standing outside today in the hot summer sun to talk with you because the OTA board refused our request to speak at today's meeting. We believe this is a mistake on the part of the board and the OTA leadership.
Displeased to say the least, Tassie Hirschfeld was just one of 3 protesters speaking out Tuesday morning before a regularly scheduled Oklahoma Turnpike Authority meeting. All 3 of them were told they would not be allowed to give public comment on a number of topics on their mind.
They told me we needed to apply or send a request 15 days in advance.
So Randy Carter says he did that for himself, Hirschfeld, and protester Amy Serrato. But he got an email back saying they wouldn't allow it because public comment is not a regular item on the agency's monthly agenda. And quote, the OTA has determined there are no agenda items anticipated where public comment is necessary.
How are we supposed to know what's specific on the agenda 15 days in advance when the agenda is never published until a day or 2 before the meeting?
The email mentioned that public comment is only done when the OTA sees it's necessary for the board's consideration for an item of business presented for approval. A statement was issued by the chairman of the OTA in the meeting saying in part, quote, the Open Meeting Act does not require a public body to take public comment, which is true. He went on to say they have made exceptions before in other meetings, but Carter still upset they couldn't share their thoughts Tuesday morning.
Isn't the business of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority the business of the citizens of Oklahoma?
Austin Brissett, Oklahoma's News 4.
Also from the Supreme Court, new developments in the Turnpike turmoil across Oklahoma.
Today, justices delivered a ruling on a lawsuit filed against the Turnpike Authority.
Also from the Supreme Court, new developments in the Turnpike turmoil across Oklahoma.
Today, justices delivered a ruling on a lawsuit filed against the Turnpike Authority, saying the OTA did not violate the Open Meeting Act regarding announcements about Access Oklahoma. A prior ruling by a Cleveland County District Judge, though, stated that they did. Ashley Moss joins us now with more. Ashley.
If you remember, that district court decision led the Turnpike Authority to pause its plans for Access Oklahoma construction in April. The lead plaintiff in the case, representing more than 200 landowners, telling me today this is certainly a setback, but a small one.
Calling the Supreme Court decision to overturn the Turnpike Authority's Open Meetings Act violation a black day for transparency, the lead lawyer in the case, Stan Ward, adding, quote, the biggest losers are the citizens of Oklahoma.
We caught them changing their agendas after the fact. We caught them making sweetheart deals with elected representatives.
His colleagues saying previous depositions made it clear the board didn't know the Access Oklahoma project was being rolled out.
We believe that this ruling effectively eviscerates the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act, that there's really nothing left of it if you can get away with what the Turnpike Authority did here.
However, Oklahoma Supreme Court justices say since no ruling was made by the Turnpike Authority's board regarding the access plan during those meetings, the OTA did not violate the Open Meetings Act. In a statement, the Turnpike Authority maintains they conduct business transparently, adding, quote, the agency remains fully committed to complying with the Open Meetings Act. The lawsuit's chief complainant saying the Open Meetings Act is a backbone of democracy, and while it's open to broad interpretation,
But they've chosen to interpret it in a way that really looks to restrict citizens' ability to understand important information about government.
Quoting the 3 justices who argued their difference of opinion.
It says the OTA created Access Oklahoma, approved management contracts, and sought funding, all while using deceptively worded agendas to obscure the purpose of the meetings and circumvent public participation. And to me, that absolutely nails it.
Now, this latest ruling is not connected to potential Supreme Court validation of proposed bonds to construct and operate new turnpike routes. That ruling and some others are still pending, which means work related to the Access Oklahoma long-range plan is still on pause.
This is the motion that calls for Oklahoma Supreme Court Justice James Winchester to be disqualified from any case on which the Turnpike Authority is involved. It's on behalf of Pike Off OTA, a group of Oklahomans trying to stop turnpike projects in the state that would force some to lose their home or property. The attorney who filed it says Winchester has, quote, an obvious and insurmountable conflict of interest. The documents point to Winchester's wife, who works for the state chamber as a lobbyist and allegedly has been at the heart of the chamber's 10-year plan to expand the turnpike system. The motion also argues the justice has consistently ruled on the side of the Turnpike Authority. At some point, the state Supreme Court will vote on whether Winchester is disqualified. Those close to the case tell KOCO they believe it's the first time a disqualification has been requested in the Supreme Court's history. We reached out to both the attorneys in this case as well as Justice James Winchester, but either did not hear back or they chose not to comment.
Well, guys, OTA says they can now go forward with long-term projects, but some down in Norman argue this isn't a done deal yet.
I've been told the southern extension is at least 7 or 8 years away if it goes through.
The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority announcing they've sold $500 million worth of bonds to push forward with Access Oklahoma projects. One of those projects, the Southern Turnpike expansion through Norman, could cut through Randy Carter's property.
We're disappointed that it happened as it did, but we weren't surprised.
Officials with OTA were not available for an interview, but they did give us information, saying the interest rate for the bond package is 5.15%. But we're told if OTA had been able to enter the market a year ago, the interest rate was expected to be about 4.44%. Inflation made it go up. Randy's group, PIKE OTA, questions if OTA met all requirements from the Council of Bond Oversight, even though OTA claims all conditions were met. But Randy has other questions.
The southern extension is up in the air. There's no specific route, yet they've issued bonds for that. To me, that doesn't pass the smell test.
He says the route that would impact his property is still in question after the Bureau of Reclamation ruled the proposed road route wasn't far enough away from Lake Thunderbird.
The Bureau of Reclamation, Federal Bureau of Reclamation, which owns Lake Thunderbird, denied them access to cross the fee title land.
Now, PIKE OTA is exploring federal legal action to try to stop all this.
The Bureau of Reclamation did leave the avenue open for the Turnpike Authority to reapply. Whether they'll do that or not, we don't know.
Now, OTA told me the main priority is widening the Turner Turnpike early next year, and it's still not known yet when that southern extension will be worked on. That could be still a few years away.
In a developing story, a controversial multi-billion-dollar plan to add and expand turnpikes across Oklahoma is one step closer to getting back on track. Now, we told you when the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority paused it earlier this year.
Fox 23's Spencer Humphrey tells us about the decision allowing the OTA to get funding for the Access Oklahoma project.
After facing several legal hurdles, the Access Oklahoma project has once again been given the green light to move forward, but the people against it say they have no plans on stopping their opposition.
That green light coming in the form of an Oklahoma Supreme Court decision in which the court ruled the OTA had the authority to seek bonds to build those roads. Then again Monday, Oklahoma's Council on Bond Oversight, a committee that state agencies have to get permission from to seek bonds, gave OTA permission to enter the bond market and fund Access Oklahoma. It's still contingent on the group PIKE OTA's appeal to the Supreme Court to rehear the case. People with that group, who have been fighting Access from the start, say they still have no plans to give up their fight, no matter how high they have to take this.
We're kind of in a holding pattern at this point. We don't know what we're not giving up a fight, but we don't know what we're going to do next. I'm frankly aghast of the outcomes of the Supreme Court and the Council on Bond Oversight.
Most of the controversy over Access has been around 3 proposed turnpikes near the Norman and Moore area. Locally here in Green Country, though, it would build the final leg of the Gilcrease Expressway between LL Tisdale Parkway and Highway 412 as a turnpike. Now, a 2-lane service road has already been built between LL Tisdale and 41st West Avenue and open as a free-to-use road for over a decade. Of course, over the past year and a half, I brought you stories about people in Berry Hill's frustration with the OTA's conversion of a similar road to a toll-only road. I have asked the OTA to confirm whether they will commit to keeping the 2-lane portion between LL Tisdale and 41st open as a free side road once their portion of the highway is built through Access Oklahoma. They have not given me a direct answer anytime I've asked.
Of course, we'll keep an eye on PIKE OTA's request for a rehearing with the state Supreme Court. We'll let you know if that ends up happening. Covering news that matters, Spencer Humphrey, Fox 23 News.
Another green light in favor of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority's expansion plan. News 9's Deanne Steins at the Capitol with the latest.
The approval allows the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority to begin the process of selling $500 million in bonds. The bond money will fund Access Oklahoma, a 15-year project that would include widening the Turner, Will Rogers, and John Kilpatrick turnpikes, as well as adding and enhancing access points on existing turnpikes. The project was stalled earlier this year due to legal matters with the state Supreme Court, including a validation case and impeding a state investigative audit.
I find it crazy that the Council for Bond Oversight would overlook such egregious financial problems and common sense and statute requirements that say they have to have traffic and revenue studies done, they have to have environmental studies done before they can get the bonds.
There are several conditions the Oversight Council set in place, including the resolution of that audit.
They certainly identified that as a condition of the Turnpike Authority moving into the bond market, and we will be absolutely 100% mindful of that, and we will satisfy that requirement before we do. So again, that is one of the variables that has to be resolved before we can move forward.
Now, Secretary Gatz hopes to have those conditions met at the earliest in October. At the state capitol, Deanne Stein, Oklahoma's Own, News 9.
We don't undertake these projects lightly. We understand the gravity of the impacts of the new routes to homeowners and businesses in the pathway, and we pledge, as we always have, to work diligently and with care with those impacted.
We hear those comments from the OTA, but residents in Norman, they're not convinced, calling this situation a living nightmare.
Fox 25's David Chazanoff spoke with homeowners that this project may impact.
After a back-and-forth legal battle with the OTA, Norman residents tell me they're extremely disappointed the bonds have been issued.
I have envisioned standing here watching a bulldozer or a power equipment destroying the home that I built. It makes for nightmares.
Randy Carter has lived on his property since 1979.
I mean, this is my home. I was the builder on this home. I also own the home next door. I built that home with my own hands.
He says the OTA project makes him scared of losing what's near and dear to his heart.
I mean, it's just stuff. But we become attached to things, and it's hard to give them up. And the thought of that, I've had a number of sleepless nights.
Some of Carter's neighbors probably feel the same way, as anti-turnpike signs can be seen in every direction you turn.
No one wants it. Like, we are unanimous. And even people who don't have signs, some signs have been stolen, some have decayed because they've been up for so long. But I have not spoken to anyone out here who wants this.
Tassie Hirschfeld has been a Norman resident since 2002. She says Friday's news about the OTA gives her mixed feelings.
One, I'm very disappointed that this bond sale went through because, two, they do not have a viable route.
Her home sits just outside where the south extension would be, from Indian Hills to Purcell.
It feels sloppy, it feels amateurish, it feels rushed, and it feels honestly a little desperate, which makes me question the overall financial stability of the agency as a whole.
Both residents say they aren't going to sit back and watch this happen.
My next steps are to read that bond document much more closely, because I suspect there are some material misstatements in there that could be the basis for future legal action.
I will just say this, we have not yet begun to fight.
Reporting for Fox 25 News, I'm David Chazanoff. Big news coming down on turnpike expansions in the state.
The Access Oklahoma project is now back on after coming to a screeching halt in April. Fox 25's Tom Ferguson joins us live from the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority with more details. So Tom, what else is new with this?
Adam and Wendy, the Turnpike Authority here just closed on a massive $500 million bond package yesterday morning. Officials say that's what's allowing engineering work to go forward on this huge expansion project.
Access Oklahoma is a 15-year-long plan that touches on 56 different projects, ranging from new turnpikes to expansions to current ones. Expansions will come to the I-44 Turner Turnpike, the I-44 Will Rogers Turnpike between Catoosa and Claremore, and a portion of the John Kilpatrick Turnpike near I-35. 3 new loops will complete the outer loop in the OKC Metro. The bond rate the OTA got was 5.17%. According to the OTA, had it been able to enter the market a year ago, That would have been 4.44%. The authority says it's facing inflation rates of 15% for construction costs per year. The OTA adding it's pleased with how the bond pricing went and got to market as soon as the Council of Bond Oversight conditions were met. The OTA says it's funded by tolls and doesn't get state appropriations like other agencies do. The bond sale doesn't go to paying off debt from former projects. According to the OTA, it can only be used to pay for upcoming access projects. As we've reported, this comes after the Attorney General requested an investigative audit of the OTA back in March over concerns surrounding the authority's, quote, financial conduct. The AG also cited an alleged Open Meetings Act violation. The state Supreme Court ruled in May that no such violation occurred.
And officials say 3 times as much money was offered to purchase bonds as were bonds available. And the OTA here also telling us that despite the tougher current market conditions it's now facing, it did need to go ahead with this expansion project. Live in Oklahoma City, Tom Ferguson, Fox 25 News.
Is a board member of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority still serving after his term expired? And are the votes he's taken since then invalid?
We're asking those questions and more after concerned residents reached out to us. And Fox 25's Tom Ferguson joins us live from the OTA with more. And Tom, what have you found out about this?
Adam and Wendy, I have confirmed with the OTA here that John Titsworth's term ended 6 months ago. Some are now calling into question decisions the board has made since then, but officials are pushing back.
This is a copy of the governor's appointment of Titsworth to the OTA board dated March 1st, 2019. It says that term expires July 1st, 2023. OTA records show him present at every board meeting that's taken place since then. Tassie Hirschfeld with Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation is asking for answers.
Makes every action taken by the board questionable, and we would really like to see many, if not all, of those decisions reversed or nullified until the board can be legally fully appointed.
Hirschfeld said there was still a quorum, even taking Titsworth out of the equation, but is asking the state attorney general to weigh in with hundreds of millions of dollars possibly on the line.
In our minds, the Turnpike Authority has been behaving like a rogue agency for a long time.
This follows public outcry and a series of legal battles over the OTA's planned turnpike expansions in the state through the Access Oklahoma project.
Unnecessary, unwanted, overly priced highways next to our homes. What we desperately want is accountability and transparency.
The OTA is responding. In a statement, the authority said Titsworth is now considered a holdover appointment with no appointment made since his term expired. According to the OTA, 4 AG opinions have affirmed holdovers' authority to continue their work legally.
And AG opinions generally carry the weight of law unless a court overturns them. A recently passed law also gives the head of the state Senate the power to appoint someone for Titsworth's position. Live in Oklahoma City, Tom Ferguson, Fox 25 News.